Testing.
Testing.
1, 2.
1, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn on my regular music.
Get this show on the road. Do that.
Push play.
Push play.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
Okay, just checking
to see what's going on with the levels.
Point the camera in
the proper direction.
One day I'm gonna be a
pro at this.
Now it's not that.
Now it's not that day. Oh, I got an echo. No. Turning echo off. Okay. Hello, Jeremy, and hello, Nadia. Evangelion, Ava. This is such an epic intro. The anime is epic in its deep themes. And it's an epic ass intro, isn't it? For sure. It's Cruel Angel Thesis. That's what the name of the song is. They use the terminology in this anime is so like over the top. Even the damn theme song, Cruel Angel Thesis. Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's just like so much like overt religious and like existential and like psychoanalytical stuff. It's really, but it's cool. Yeah, so welcome for those who are tuning in for the first time or who will watch for the first time later. The stream may be up. You'll be up later if you missed the live. It's all good. This is the Black Ponderer. And at the Black Ponderer, we talk about philosophical themes. We usually read philosophy texts, and then we, just have discussions about the text. Usually, we just read we read all types of things, but I guess our tired and true staples are, the classics like Plato and, Kant and Sartre and Rene Descartes and like all those dry philosophers that I find very interesting, but Nietzsche. but sometimes we do talk about like all types of other philosophers, contemporary philosophy as well, and then I guess not even lately now. For a long time now, we've been doing these live streams, which are more free balling. They're kind of like chillaxing. We're like hanging out. Think of it like being at a club or a bar or a lounge, and we just relaxing, a cafe. And we're just having a good time. We're just no lecturing, just like conversation style. And we talk about a philosophy topic. And today is a viewer request. We got Evangelion up in here. People, I asked last stream, we were like, hey, we started talking about anime, and honestly, like anime is one of the gateways into philosophy. Like I watched as a little kid, I saw a lot of anime that was deep in philosophy. Like Ghost in the Shell was another one. Akira was another one. There was a few others. And later on was Evangelion. That is like such a philosophical anime. So, and that people wanted to talk about it. So there we go. So that's what we got to talk about today. Let's see here. I had to step away from the computer while waiting for your live. I guess my volume was turned up and pretty high, and I was wondering what was happening. Oh. Yeah, it's like one of those classic like anime intros. The intro that all anime models, I think. So we'll get into that. Also, like Ava, it does a lot of like commentary on anime, borderline like satire. It satires or like critiques. It does a lot of commentary on anime itself. So it's kind of like in a way mocking anime theme songs. so that's why it's kind of like over the top, kind of like very like heavy on the anime style, the way that it opens, because it's a part of the show is kind of making fun of just in the anime style in general, and that's why it's a very clever anime. You haven't heard of this anime? I wonder if it came out before you were even born, because it came out like 1995. So you might have been like a baby, or might not even been around when it first came out. It's a quite old anime. It came out in the 90s. I had to step away. Oh, let's see. I have read 6 of the Nib. Okay, we're talking about the Nib graphic novels. I'm 97. Yep. So yeah, Evangelion came out before you were even born. I have read 6 of the Nib graphics. Cool. Yeah. I drive food from my supermarket every Sunday and participate in Food Not Bombs. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, Food Not Bombs, baby. There we go. So you're a fellow Food Not Bombs member. Awesome. Food from my supermarket every Sunday and participate. Cool. Yeah, that's how you make a difference in the world. Just all it takes is a ripple effect. So that's awesome. So I'll get started with, I like to start off with anecdotes, personal experiences with the topic. That's how I kind of get myself started with the conversation, and feel free to jump in when you want. That's cool. So the first time I saw Ava, that's the nickname. You can shortcut it and call it Ava. The first time, what does Sinji represent? Yeah, we can talk about that, but let me give you some context. How old was I? I think I was like a teenager, maybe like 14, 15 or something like that. No, it was a lot younger, actually, because when I first saw it was on PBS, Public Broadcasting Service. And I hear like that was a rare thing, like that only happened like once. They aired it on PBS for this one time only, and I saw it there, but I didn't see like all the episodes, because of course it came on sporadically, so I would watch. I think I saw like 3 episodes. They were all out of order, and I didn't really understand what I was watching. But stylistically it was so compelling, right? I saw typical anime. You got the robots, giant robots, the teenagers piloting the giant robots, the mecha anime. But these robots were biomechanical, right? So they were bleeding, and there was a lot of gore and shit. So that was kind of weird. I remember that was like, what's going on here? And then another weird part about the anime is like the pilot hooks up into the neural network of the bio machine, so like it feels the same pain as the robot as it's fighting, which I thought was kind of like weird. Like, why would you do that? Like, isn't that weak? Like, isn't that a disadvantage? But I think the idea was you can respond faster or something like that with when you're like hooked up to the neural network or something. So when the robots got hurt, the pilots got hurt the same. They felt the same, and they kind of pushed that whole angle. And then also, like, I remember the other weird thing was the robot was hooked up to a gigantic like extension cord. It had to be hooked up to a cord all the time. Which was weird. So it only had this limited distance it could fight, and it was like kind of tethered to this like electric cord. I just thought that was weird. Okay, so I did see it for a while, but then it was on PBS. So I would see it sporadically, but then it came on Cartoon Network eventually. Right, I have to remember that. And then it came on Cartoon Network, then I started watching it in order. And then, but that was like years later. Like maybe 7-8 years later. Well, maybe not that long. No, I was grown. I think I was in college when I think I was in graduate school actually when it was doing when they started releasing it on Toonami. And that's what I really was watching it, and I was like, okay, this is some next level shit. This is an awesome anime, an awesome show. Yeah, I really liked it. But let's go to some comments here. So what does Shinji represent? So yeah, that's an interesting question, because there are many ways to watch Evangelion. A lot of people watch Evangelion because they like the characters, because and it's mostly because they think the characters look cute. And I think that's part of a lot of what Evangelion was trying to. It's kind of like, in a way, it's a bit of a satire, and it's parody too, which is kind of like, not on the surface you would catch it, is commentary, because they get these generic anime cute looking characters. Shinji is like that. I know I have a lot of friends who are Ava fans. They like Evan, and they just like because Shinji's cute. They just find Shinji like adorable, and so that's really why they like the show. And you ask them about the storyline, they could care less. They don't care about the storyline. And that's the same thing with the two main pilot girls, right? Asuka and Rei. They're like these cute little girls, and like people are really into that. And and a lot of people just like the show just because of that, because these adorable looking characters, and the show makes fun of that, I think, but in a very covert way. Like it's taking that trope of like these really adorable, cute, like prepubescent looking characters that look adorable, but are also sexualized in this weird way, which you see a lot in anime, and they're kind of like throwing it at your face. And I think that kind of went over a lot of people's heads, and it still does to this day, right? And it's not to say that the creators of the anime, or the company that owns the rights to this anime, they kind of have taken that and ran with it, right? They sell all this merchandise now, where it's just like these anime figures and these action figures and these posters where they're in bikinis and shit, and they're just making hand over fist with the money. So they're kind of like taking that and running with it. But the original intent was like, it was kind of more like you make these adorable characters, and it was kind of like the creators were like, don't you think this is a little silly that you're doing, that you're kind of like fetishizing these like cartoon characters? I think that's kind of a huge part of the show. And I think Shinji he represents that. He represents all types of stuff. Okay, let's see. Let's go down the line. Hello, Purple Lection. I've not watched very much of it at all. I know a little bit about what it's about from online. I guess I should say it's going to be spoiler heavy. So if you don't want to be spoiler, let me like put that warning. Spoiler alert. Alert. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then you might want to click away, which is not good for the algorithm, but I don't care about the algorithm. Like, I'm sure I got a copyright strike for showing that theme song, but I don't care about that because I don't monetize that video. So, man, I'm not a slave to the algorithm like that. Spoiler alert, whole stream. Pin. just throwing it out there. So you don't blame me. Don't blame me. Watch it. Watch the show again, and then come back. So what is the relationship between angels and humans? Do angels try to communicate with humans, giving a message? So I remember the angels were the bad guys, and the humans were they were just fighting the so the angels was part of the whole human instrumentality project. That's another thing. Like there's this thing in the anime. It's called the Human Instrumentality Project, and the anime uses all these like this jargon they throw at you, and I think that's also like part of the satire of the show. And so Shinji has a dad who's a main character, Gendu Ikari, I think his name is. Gendo, we'll just call him Gendo. That's his first name. And he's the leader of the company Nerve. I remember that, Nerve. Why is it called Nerve? I forgot, but I think it's part of it has to do with what the pilots hook up to the neural network and experience the same nervous system as the robots, right? So it's called Nerve, and so Nerve is a company that's trying to understand the angels, and really what they're doing is like they're trying to force the Human Instrumentality Project. So they're trying to like understand what the angels, these bad guys, are doing, right? But they're also fighting the angels, right? So what is the relationship between the angels and the humans? I don't know. I think I think with Evangelion, you really have to look at Eva like you gotta really take it as a commentary, and like it's more of an exploration of themes. But you know, it also has a storyline and stuff. But I think because the show has a lot of plot holes, and it's like not complete, and there's more questions than answers, and a lot of people get frustrated about that, and they're like, "Well, I don't understand the storyline," and it's like, well, the show really isn't, more just a commentary, and it's like a satire and it's an exploration of themes and concepts. So like the angels, for example, so with these angels, one of the things that they were doing in the show was that they were satiring like the monster of the week type of thing, because with a lot of the Japanese entertainment like Godzilla and Ultraman and like all the Sentai stuff, the stuff that Power Rangers is based off of, they would have like this weird monster. Like every week they would come out with this, like, you know, like kind of like with you have monster movies back in the day here in America, you know, and you have the weird like monster of the week that and they did that in like in Japan in their own way. Like Ultraman has to face off against some weird ass monster, you know, Godzilla has to face off against some weird monster, and so that's why that in the anime the angels look all weird and like very like abstract and shit, because you know, that's based off a lot of the monsters that you would see in like Ultraman and like Kamen Rider. That's another one. like you know, a lot of those Power Rangers type shows, you would see that. What's it? I think Gotcha Man is another one. So the angels, like the angels, are more just kind of a representation of that than anything else, really. I would say. And then what is it? It seems that the angels are created by God to destroy human limitations. Yeah, maybe. I forgot. So you know, I put the poll up and I voted it, but I didn't. You know, I didn't actually like rewatch the anime, right? So I don't remember like all the details of the story, to be completely honest with you. So that could be the case. But I do remember watching it, and I in my mind I was thinking like the plot itself, like the story, is not important as much as like what these things represent. So it could be the case that God created these angels to destroy human limitations. Okay, feel free to expand upon that. I think there's a lot of like religious references thrown into the show, and it's a lot of that kind of language because again, I think there's this religious commentary in the show, and it's almost like this religious satire where the show is kind of like using these religious tropes, but they're like kind of pushing them over the top and kind of like, what do you say, blowing them way out of proportion, right? So into this kind of laughable state, and which kind of brings up, like, highlights a lot of the absurdity of a lot of these religious ideas, right? And I think that's more what's going on in Evangelion in terms of the angels and like their relationship with like the storyline. And then the question is, did the creators express that they were intentionally critiquing fetishization? Yeah. Or is that just self-evident? Yeah, the creator, the guy, he explicitly says this. However, you know, in the anime industry, right, much like lots of industries, the creator only has so much control. They can come out with the idea, but then like you got your executive producers and like your shareholders, like, you know, your focus groups and all that, and they don't care about like the creator. They're just like, hey, we got to sell this product. So a lot of that was lost, right, or it's not emphasized, which the creator was well aware that was what was going to happen. So a lot of the anime kind of has this like this meta attribute to it, this like self-referencing to that to like industry. You know, an example of that is, you know, oftentimes in anime, they'll like have characters kind of stand still for a long time. You see that a lot in like Speed Racer, like older anime. Nowadays, it's not the thing because computers kind of take over a lot of animation, so they don't have to worry about that kind of thing anymore in terms of like saving money. But they would have a lot of older animes. They would have the characters kind of stand still for a while for extent, because that would save money. So you see that done in Eva a lot. And it is weird. It's very awkward, right? You're just like, there's a point where Asuka and Rei, the two main pilots, are in an elevator for a long ass time. It's like 20 seconds. There's a lot of that. There's characters just standing still for like 20 seconds, and it's very awkward. But he was satirizing like that's a common technique like old school anime did to just kind of filler to fill up time to save money, right? So it's a lot of that going on. But then what happens is like viewers look at that and then they're like, whoa, this got some deep meaning. Like, what's going on? Like the awkward silence, like that means something. That's symbolic. It's like, well, no, they're just kind of making fun of like industry standards and stuff. You know. And so yeah, like the fetishization of these teenage characters, right? Because remember, they're like 14 years old, but they're like definitely like sexualized. Like this, you know, this is where the characters are nude, right? They're butt naked, right in the show. You know, and so, and the creators did that on purpose, right? Trying to point out the absurdity of it, but you know, it went over a lot of people's heads, which is part of the point. Like, I think the creator kind of knew that was what was going to happen. Like, people aren't going to get this, but which is what makes it kind of funny, actually. Really, so yeah. So there's that part of it too. There's like this self-awareness that is missed a lot by people who watch the show. Okay, so what are instances of satire that you picked up? So that's one of those, like those moments of silence there, and you'll notice, right? They're all over the anime. Like the characters will just be standing there not saying anything, and you're just like, what huh? But and it's funny because You'll hear these people have these long ass conversations about like, oh, it must mean this prophetic, profound thing. It's like, no, he was just making fun of anime that they do that kind of thing. Nowadays, you don't see that as much because now, like, you know, you got computer programs kind of automate a lot of like the repetitive animation. So you don't have like, there's less of animators just hunched over drawing frame by frame nowadays. So a lot of that labor has been like factored out of the cost of making an anime. But back in the day, like that was the thing that, you know, you'd have to pay the laborer to like draw the same thing over and over again. So like, forget it. Let's just have them stand there and fill up time. Yeah, I mean, the famous one of the famous ones is when Shinji fights the very last angel, which is also the final pilot, and I think, you know, Shinji's grabbing the pilot in the robot, and he just holds, you know, he holds the angel in his hand. And it's supposed to be this dramatic moment because he doesn't want to, like, he has these mixed feelings, Shinji, about should I kill him or not. And so there's this long ass. He just holds the pilot in his hand, in the robot hand, for this long ass time. I think they're playing like classical music or something. I don't remember. And, you know. And it's like super dramatic, but at the same time, it's like satire, because they're just doing that so they can save money, right? Because that's a common technique. So that's another thing. Like they mix the satire, like they cover it up with like these this like kind of how can I say? I don't want to say like a farce or like a fake drama. I guess it is. It's like fake drama, or like these like it's insinuating this deeper meaning, but it doesn't mean anything really. And a lot of people like overanalyze this stuff, but like that's part of like the creators. That's what he wanted to do. So what is it? Did you watch the end of Evangelion? Yes, that movie, and then the rebuild. I haven't seen any of the new ones. I've seen the end of Evangelion. These just came up on Google when I searched. Yeah, so Evangelion has been remade many, many, many times because it's like a cash cow. Which again, like, that's kind of part of the satire of it. Like, because people just can't get enough of it. Although, you know, the anime is like not nearly as popular as it once was, right? But it's still pretty, you know, it's made a lot of money. It's probably one of the most profitable anime ever made, right? In terms of like all the merchandise that it sells, right? So it's been remade many times, and like the idea was like, okay, we're going to come out with these remakes and they're going to answer all the questions that were left unanswered. But the problem is these remakes just add more questions. So they're not like answering any of the questions. Like they're just like giving you more. Is making the plot even less understandable, right? And so it's leaving the viewer wanting more, which I think like that's intentional, right? So I've seen. So it's interesting. The last two episodes of Evangelion, it famously like veer off into like this weird like psychoanalysis of the characters. It gets like the last two episodes get like extremely abstract and like cerebral, and it's like this like psychoanalytical Freudian Jung type of like philosophy of psychology breakdown going on with like all the characters, and it gets really weird, right? And it gets really deep and like overtly philosophical. And part of the reason why that is when the creator was making the show, the production company was like, hey, we gotta end this. Like we only have this many amount of episodes, so we gotta get this done. And the creator was like, well, I still had all this, I was gonna do all this other stuff, and but the production company is like, no, you need to wrap this up in 2 episodes, or like, or else, right? So he's like, all right, I'll make these episodes that basically summarize like all the stuff that I was planning on doing. So it's kind of a mess, right? But it's pretty cool. I really like it. But most people who watch the show do not like it, right? They think it's very strange. It's very like off theme. Like nobody's like fighting anymore. It's just like this psychoanalysis, this cerebral like venture into like psychological abstraction. So a lot of people didn't like it, and a lot of people really, really didn't like it. And in Japan, like some of the fans like sent hate mail to the creator, right? Because they really didn't like it, right? Death threats and shit, right? That kind of level of like craziness. So as a response, the creators, the production company let the creator create the movie, the end of Evangelion, and said, okay, this is the movie that y'all want. I'm gonna give you this because this is a bit more along your lines. This kind of gives a conclusion, and it kind of like it's this huge fight scene, and it gets all the characters are like doing combat, but it's still like even the movie. It's still very abstract, right? It ends very vaguely, like it's weird, but it's more along the lines of like it draws to like a conclusion, right? It's funny. It's funny thinking back to me watching that. I really like both of them. I like the 2 last episodes, and I like the 2 last episodes the best. That's awesome. But the movie was alright too. It was cool. But I haven't seen the new ones. I know the new ones, they added a new pilot, like a new girl. Like there's a 3rd girl. I know this, but that they added that a long ass time ago, right? Over a decade ago. Like these remakes are like very old. But I didn't even bother to watch them, to be honest with you. And then after I heard like people watching it and then told me like, dude, I have more questions than answers. I'm like, well, I'm not even gonna bother watching it. I'm familiar with the old school one. You mentioned you put up a poll. What was the poll? Oh yeah, it's on our community, the community tab on YouTube, my YouTube channel. I put up last stream. People were like wanting to talk about anime, so I put up 3 anime and had the viewers decide like which one you want to vote for, and people voted for Evangelion, so here we are. I look at the storyline and it sounds like existentialism being made fun of. I think it's being made fun of, but I also think there is a serious examination of it as well with Shinji, which we can go into. Let me catch up. I think is being made fun of, but it's also a serious examination of existentialism. I didn't think Eva as a satire. I thought it was about exploring nihilism, existentialism, and teenage sexuality. It's that too. It is exploring nihilism, existentialism, and teenage sexuality. It's so many things. It's so many things. It's so many things. I think. I was gonna say like it explores teenage sexuality, but in a very narrow way, right? Very narrow way. It's very like teenage heterosexual boy sexuality, but like there's no other sexuality outside of that, right? So in that way, it's kind of satirical. I would argue. Like some people would say, like, "Wow, that's That's very limiting. And here we go again with the same old like teenage boy drama, right? But I feel like, well, that's part of the satire of it, where it's like, yeah, let's take that typical like teenage angst. Oh, I can't get the girl, and because I feel sorry for myself, and let's kind of flip that on his head, right? And let's like not give the character what they want, right? And he having to just deal with that shit, and him like Shinji whines and complains a lot, which he does. Like Shinji like whines and complains like all the fucking time. It's actually quite annoying. And some people will be like, well, he's dealing with a lot. It's like, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think he could have went about it. But, that's typical, like, teenage angst type of shit, which gets old fast. But I think by the creator not giving Shinji a break, really, I like that. I like that. It's kind of like, could you just get over yourself? I think that, I don't know, that's how I feel. Most of the my anime watching has been more recent stuff. Okay, so I bet the extended stillness, like the elevator scene, will be even more jarring for me. Yeah, you might not get it. You might be like, what the hell? What is this? Why are they just standing in an elevator for like 30 seconds? So like probably more. Not saying anything. Oh, it's dramatic effect though, because anime, and we're talking like old school anime. Used to do that, like the old school Dragon Ball did that shit. Dragon Ball has this nickname, the old like drag on ball, because it drags so damn much. But they drag it because it's old stuff. It's kind of like, it's the same reason why Dostoevsky novels are so long, or like Charles Dickens novels are so long, because these authors were paid by the word. They were literally paid by so they're gonna like drag it on as far as possible as you get paid. But it's like an hourly employee. I used to do that shit too. And some of the jobs where I was paid hourly, I'm like, well, I'm not, and then you get overtime, right? So you're like, well, I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna put a pep in my step if I'm getting double overtime. But so that's that kind of shit. Right? But in newer anime, that's not a thing anymore, because computers kind of like, they automate a lot of that animation, that tedious animation process. So, yeah. I learned that Ava also criticizes gender stereotypes, like Shinji is feminine and Asuka is masculine. I'm sure that's the case. I'm sure it criticizes that. I don't know if Asuka is really masculine. I know she's very abrasive and like brash. I guess those are quote unquote masculine traits. Very like outspoken. I don't know if that's like maybe like back in the day, maybe in the 90s. Yeah. I didn't see that. I saw like Asuka, because Asuka gets screwed over in the show too, right? Because she kind of loses her mind, right? I hear in the new one she actually loses an eye. And she has an eye patch in the new one. Like all the characters in the show get like fucked over. Like none of the characters get like none of the characters have a good time, right? Asuka, I think Asuka is more that represents that character that kind of maybe the femme fatale, but in anime like the femme fatale is like the hot girl that just gets what she wants because she's hot, right? And she's kind of like she's not very smart. You see it in anime all the time, but the dumb blonde basically. But but anime has their own flavor of that. It's kind of like Bulma from Dragon Ball Z, or choose your anime. Most animes have that style of character, but in most animes, these characters, that trope of like the the quote unquote bimbo character, because it's all based off of just old school storytelling. They usually like get what they want through like being pretty and shit. Well, the creator kind of took that trope and like flipped it, right? Where they're like, okay, I'm not gonna give this character what they want, but they're still gonna do that typical stuff. Like they're still gonna be brash and outspoken and kind of push their way, thinking like, because Asuka's very obnoxious and she just thinks she can just have her way with anything, but it doesn't work out for her. Right? So it has that standard character flipped on his head. Right? Same thing with Rei, right? That's another character that's like typical anime, the quiet girl that's like a savant, like very like skilled, but she's quiet and she has like this hidden power. And usually like in these anime stories, the quiet character kind of finds their way and learns how to speak up and like finds their innate talent and like rises to the occasion. Right? And like becomes more outspoken and all this shit, which that's a typical trope. Usually a cute girl, but that doesn't happen to Rei, right? Rei, like, she also gets really screwed over, right? There's a revelation in the anime that really like fucks her mind up, or if you watch the show, you'll know, right? So I don't know if it does. I don't know if it deals with gender stereotypes as much as you say. Maybe. So anime before Eva didn't have much pauses and dramatic scenes. No, I'm saying like anime before Eva did have pauses. It did have, like Speed Racer is a classic example of that, where the characters are just standing there doing nothing. Dragon Ball is another one. Like all those old school animes had that kind of stuff. And it was always kind of awkward, but you would always just chalk it up to like, that's how anime roll. But really, they're just trying to like save money. But Evangelion just kind of made it more overt. It kind of like really pushed it in your face. Kind of made it like really obvious, like that was happening. But you saw they were satirizing that, right? Yeah, no, definitely anime before that had the awkward pauses. Oh, I need to get notifications when you post your community page. Yeah, hit that notification bell. I'm sure you did. YouTube sometimes gives you a notification, sometimes it doesn't. Some people will say like, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I just think YouTube's not perfect, and it just doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't work as it advertises it does. So it's nobody's fault but YouTube's. Whatever, it's all good. I'm sure the creator explores gender norms because Shinji is not typical teenage boy at all. I don't know. I think he is pretty typical. I think he's pretty. He's whiny. He complains a lot. He kind of thinks the world revolves around him. He thinks like his problems are like the problems he's facing is like the most important problems, which is like a typical teenage boy thing. He's kind of like woe is me attitude, right? He's very much a Catcher in the Rye style character, but I guess he's a little bit more timid or shy. But I don't know. He definitely, I think he displays a lot of that typical teenage angst, which is why a lot of people are able to insert themselves into Shinji, and they could be like, yeah, I know what that's like. I think that's why Shinji is so beloved, because people are like, yeah, I remember that. But for me, it's kind of like, to me, I felt like, well, that's just something you kind of have to mature out of, right? Yeah, that's part of like the teenage years you have to mature out of. Like, you kind of have to get out of that kind of mindset, because it's very limiting and kind of egotistical and narcissistic, in my opinion. some people would say like, oh, woe is Shinji, he's going through such a hard time. But for me, it's like, I don't know, I think that's one of the messages of the show. It's like, I think Shinji has such a hard time because he doesn't overcome that like immature attitude about life. And kind of just rise up and say, yeah, I'm just gonna like, be, embrace more agency, right? And, like, not be a victim to my circumstances, right? And kind of like, be kind of, you got these nice looking girls with you, you might as well be like, hey, I got nice ladies with you. You don't have to like wallow in that shit. Oh, they don't want me. Like, so who cares? Yeah, I don't know. All boys are raised not to bitch, whine, complain. Yep. Shinji represents the complete opposite. Yeah, but his father Gendo is like always pressuring him. He always says like, why are you whining? Why are you complaining? Like the very first episode, Shinji, I think it's the very first episode, Shinji is like, he has to get into the robot, the biomechanical robot, the Ava, that's what they're called. The robots in this anime, they're called Avas. And Gendo's like, get in the suit, get in the robotic, Shinji, and Shinji's like, no, I don't want to get in the robot. And he's like, just get in the damn suit, get into the robot, Shinji. I don't want to. And then Shinji's like, why do I have to do it? And Gendo's like, because you're the only one that can do it. Like, well, why can't somebody else do it? Because nobody else can do it, Shinji. like, stop whining and get into the damn robot. So, like, his father pressures him all the time to get into. And he's like a disappointment. That's a thing in the show, right? Shinji doesn't like his dad because his dad's kind of disappointed in him because he's kind of a whiny little complaining boy. Which is, I'm not saying Gendo's a horrible. He's not a very good father, but no, that's definitely there. That's definitely there. Folks in the chat who are subscribed to the Black Ponderer, how do you keep up with the community posts? I can't seem to find a notification. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. That sucks. I guess, I would say hit the notification bell. I think you do have to do something else, which is stupid. So, yeah, I hear like you got to hit the notification bell, but I think you have to go in the settings and do some other thing. I don't know. Too bad. Asuka doesn't represent traditional femininity in the queer lens. Yeah, I don't, Asuka doesn't represent traditional femininity in a queer line. I don't know about that. I don't know if it even explores like queer themes, really. That would be nice if it went there. It kind of does that like a little tiny bit with the Last Angel, like the boy, like I forgot his name. He was a very Koiji, I think. Koji, like the boy with the white hair. Kind of does that, like, because some people, well, I can see that. I can see that some people are like, well, he's kind of queer. He's queer coded, I guess. I don't think Asuka really represents anything queer. And then is she traditional feminine? Yeah, I think so. I think she's a like a femme fatale type of feminine. Yeah, it's like that kind of like a bombshell type of femininity, kind of like the brash femininity that you see. I mean, you see these type of feminine tropes in like old school black and white films, right? Like, yeah, for sure. Like, the damsel in Indiana Jones, right, is that kind of character. A lot of like those action adventure shows. You see that kind of character, right? Who's like, kind of, femme fatales, or like, the character that's like, the female love interest, the woman love interest that's very brash and abrasive and like, no, I don't want to be with you because I have my own thing that I'm doing. But eventually, like, she slowly falls in love with the main male lead, like after a while, and even though they're brash, and maybe like the male lead likes the female lead because they're like, I kind of like a spicy woman, that kind of bullshit, right? I mean, that happens in life. Like, I get it, but it's kind of played out, right? And Asuka, I think, represents that kind of like that kind of style of feminine character. But I think it's satirized in Evangelion, I would say. What is your interpretation of the angels? Like I was saying before, I guess you missed it. The angels more represent like monster of the week type of, because if you look at these angels, they look very strange. And if you look at monsters of the week, like and it's not, it's monsters of the week, like the Mummy, or the Frankenstein's monster, like, the vampire character, so there's that. But also like the Japanese take on that, which is, if you look at Ultraman and Godzilla and like Kamen Rider and like those old school like Japanese entertainment, where Ultraman, for example, has to face off against some monster every week, and usually this is weird looking alien thing that he has to face off against, and so that the angels represent that. In my opinion, they're kind of satirizing like that setup where it's like always this like alien monster that they have to fight off against. That's what the angels represent, to me, like, more so. I'm sure they also have like a story, like, there's a component in the plot where they, in terms of like that human instrumentality project. But I think that's like that's just part of the surface, right? The whole, like, I don't think there's like that. There's because people will go into these weird, these like deep analysis of like, well, the angels represent the humanity's compulsion to choose above everything. Humans are gods of choice, and the angels are pushing humans' agency and all this. And I'm like, I think like if you just try and follow the plot, but I think that is more just that's more of like, they're using, the creator uses that kind of over the top, like, religious mythological like storytelling to like satirize like the absurdity of like how we tell stories today. So I think that's more what the angels represent. Kind of like the angels represent this the strange way we tell stories nowadays. Femme fatales are not obnoxious, but okay. Well, I mean, that's cool. That's your opinion, right? That's on you. I'm kind of getting tired of the femme fatale. Although, nowadays you don't really see those kinds of characters anymore because they're kind of old. They're played out. And I think they probably were getting obnoxious. So, like, modern stories, you kind of don't really see femme fatales anymore. We're kind of over that trope, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe you think it's cool. That's cool. Do you think in the anime the concept of good and evil is mocked? I don't think so. Good and evil. I'm trying to think, is even good and evil, is that a thing that's even addressed in the show? That's my dog barking. I guess the anime makes fun of the Bible. Doesn't make fun of the Bible. No, I think it just makes fun of religion in general. Not specifically the Bible. Because it also draws some Judaic, Judaic. So I guess the Judaic Bible it did. But it also draws from like Hinduism and Buddhism. And, it's not just Christianity that the show is drawing from. So I think it's more broad than that, I would say. Like the Human Instrumentality Project is it's kind of like this satire of I would argue of Hinduist belief in like the oneness. But it's a very it's satire, but it's very like it's not like surface level satire. It's like really like deep, analytical, like super philosophical satire. So it's hard to like, I don't know what you would call it. It's more commentary, I would say, but it's critique. It is critique though. So it's social commentary, but it is a critique, right? But it does venture into satire with some of this like over the top language that it uses, or like over the top themes. But it's more so like social critique, I would argue. Like the angels randomly attack humans for no reason. Right. So that's the thing that happens a lot, right? And so, but then the people who are fans of the show will like analyze all day and night, like, well, why are the angels attacking the humans? The reason is this, and the reason is that. Well, if you really look deeply into the storyline, it's because of this. But in my opinion, they're really, that's not what's important, or that's not what the show is trying to like. That's not the aim of the show, right? The aim of the show is to like, it's doing that like Ultraman. It's very evident in Japanese media where they do this more so. Nowadays, and I don't. Yeah, they still have Ultraman and stuff like that in Japan, and like they got Power Ranger stuff in Japan. So they still do that kind of thing. Over here in the West, we don't do that as much as we used to, like in the 60s and in the 70s and like the 80s. Like we would do that kind of where you'd have a monster of the week and type of shit, which is fun. That's a fun thing to do. Like that's fun, but it's not deep. What I mean? And sometimes you don't need deep. So, so I think the show, the Ava is trying to like bring that back. There's this villain that just comes out of nowhere for no reason and attacks, and it tries to put this veneer of depth to it, but the reality is there's no depth. Right? It's just this weird squiggly line thing that's attacking a city. I think literally like one of the angels is just giant squiggly line thing. That's like it's so strange, right? Are they Google paging that claim the anime is satire? What does Google say that? Are you trying to see like? Are you looking at Google trying to find out if Google's saying that is satire? I don't know. I'm just saying that's kind of what I think it is. But I think, like I said, more so it is critique. It's critique that kind of ventures into satire, not always, but it's like critique of things. but it does kind of get funny sometimes. Just like the theme song, I would say. The theme song, I think, is pretty satirical because it's like way over the top, like anime opening. Even the title of the song, "Cruel Angel Thesis," is like, what does that even mean? It's just like, but of course, like people will like super hyper analyze, like, well, what it means is, the angels are attacking the humans, so they're cruel, and they have a reason why they're doing it, so that's their thesis. And if you listen to the lyrics very deeply, you will be able to determine what that thesis is. Right? And meanwhile, the creator is probably laughing his ass off, like, huh, gotcha. Now buy my merch. Yeah. What do you think about the psychoanalysis in Ava? I think it's very cool. Like, particularly like those last 2 episodes. I think that's really awesome. A lot of people didn't like those episodes. I had a friend who recently watched Evangelion for the first time and hated the episodes, which is a common response. But I loved it because it does add some depth to the show, I think. If you, I'm sure, like, maybe you've seen the show, Jeremy. Like, at the very last scene is the cold cast, they clap. They're just clapping, like, good job, Sidgy, you did a great job. Congratulations. Yeah, they all say congratulations. Congratulations, Sidgy, congratulations. Because he finished his therapy session. And it's so weird. It's like, and then so it ends like that, and you're just like, what the fuck? What did I just watch? But it's like a therapy session, really. He's like, Sidgy's like, yeah, I understand now. I get it. Congratulations, Sidgy. Yay! And then the show ends. So funny. The show is both stupid and deep, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know if it's very deep. I don't think it's stupid. It's not like Ren and Stimpy or something like that, or like Beavis and Butthead or something like that. I think it's satirical. It's satirical, and I think it's absurd, but it's absurd in a smart way. I think it points out absurdities. It's absurd because it's trying to, like, explain certain absurdities in our entertainment. And you watch the show, you're like, what the hell is this going on? But then you realize, if you really think about it, it's like, actually lots of shows do exactly this. And it is kind of dumb that we like this kind of stuff, right? So I think the show is more pointing out stupidity in media that we like, right? But I don't think the show is stupid itself. I think it is very deep, though. I think it is very deep. But that's my take on Neon Genesis Evangelion. Feel free to comment. I think we've hit the hour mark. So if nobody has any more comments they want to make, I think we can conclude the stream. And Neon Genesis Evangelion is definitely one of my all-time favorite anime. I think it's a great show. I think you should check it out. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. Some people won't like it. I think it's very heady. I think it's a bit like it can be a bit philosophical. But I do think you can watch the show and not care about that. And I think that's one of the beauties of the show. Like, you could just like the characters and be like, hey, I just like these characters. And I think that's fine, As I think most of the people who like Evangelion, they really just like the characters. And they'll buy, like, the anime figures of, like, Asuka on a motorcycle. Or, like, Rei in a bikini and shit. Or whatever that new girl is. A lot of people have that crush on Akoji, the boy with the white hair. I got a lot of friends who are girls who love Coach, has a huge crush on that character. So I think you could go in there doing that kind of thing, and that'll be fine. How long did you conclude about satire? Like how long did it take me to figure out that it was satire? Is that your question? Like almost immediately. I mean, when I watched the theme song, I was like, okay, this theme song is like really like over exaggeration to the max. So either it's kind of like, satire, or it's a bomb ass theme song. Don't get it twisted. It's like you could play that theme song at a party and just like turn up. You know what I'm saying? But that tells you right there. Like, the creator admitted the show was absurd. Yeah, he definitely talks about a lot of this. This is where a lot of the information that I'm telling you I got from watching or reading interviews from the creator, who I don't think is who's not so much that he's not too involved in the show anymore, because they're still coming out with remakes and stuff, but I think it's more controlled by the production company than him nowadays. But he definitely talks a lot about a lot of this absurdity in the show, which is intentional for sure. But yeah, I guess we'll singing about Cruel Angel is entertainingly meaningful. Maybe we'll add on no, we won't. I'll just close out here. Yeah, so if you got any suggestions for another stream, let me know. Comment below, or insert it in the chat. I could talk about another anime, but we probably will do that not next time because we already talked about one. But we might continue that later on. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I can do next week for a stream. And until then, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. It was nice hanging out with y'all. And yeah, I'll see y'all later. And you've been watching the Black Ponderer. Tune in next time for more philosophical thought.